Okay, guys, a couple of things just to wrap up for the first part of V-Ray. I will make my mental adjustments between 3D Studio and V-Ray. I think I'm mixing up the two in terms of some of the different settings, so I apologize that it hasn't been super smooth. But a couple of quick things in terms of Jack's question about the mapping, and the bump mapping is actually displacement mapping in V-Ray. It's bump mapping in 3D Studio, so I had them backwards. So let's go through quickly both of those. If you want to change how the image is mapped onto your surface, and I'm just in Rhino in the rendered view so I can see what the kind of image is going to look like on my material. If you select the object in your properties dialog box, you have a texture mapping option over here that will allow for you to change how the map is placed onto the object. So if for some reason I had a spherical map instead of on a rectangular object rather than a box map, I could change that by choosing the other type of mapping. So sorry, this is hard to see. I'm going to get rid of the planar one. I'm going to get rid of the box. I'm going to get rid of the planar. And I should just have a spherical one left. So I'm going to apply a spherical map, tell it I want it to be on a channel, and you can see that the way that the image is mapped onto the object is changed. Obviously that's not the way I want it on this object, so I'm going to, I can either check this channel of this map and change it to box, and then set the rotation to 0, 0, 0, so that it realigns it. And then I could play around with the size, so it's changing it back to something smaller. Or you can play around with these different things. If you have multiple channels on, that's where you see the multiple types of maps. They should show up in here when you have your object selected. And this is where you go in and change the how it's controlling the particular image on the particular object. Okay. Under materials, if I want this to have a relief to it, instead of bump, I want to have a displacement map on. So I'm going to use the same image file as the wood texture, and I'm really exaggerating this just so you could see it. So I've made the displacement on this 10, and I'm going to make sure that this material is applied to my selection. And then if I go in and render it, you should start to see, even in this, as the rendering is starting to go through, you can see that the surface has dramatically changed. So where it's white, it's going to be higher, and where it's dark, it's going to be lower. So it'll make it appear as though it's a three-dimensional object, even though you're pulling the information from a two-dimensional image. Anytime you add maps to something, it's going to increase the render time, so be careful about going in and doing this on every material. You're going to have a really heavy render. But at times with something like this, it really makes a lot of sense. So this is going to take a little while to render. We'll let that go. Other general questions that you have, so putting in lights, you guys can do that. You can control the sun. You can make general materials that have color and transparency. You can make materials that have textures to them by adding a map to the color. You can give that depth by adding a bitmap to the displacement. Or you can download pre-made materials from online. And you saw how to load those into V-Ray. Other questions right now? Do you feel like you have, even though I fumbled through it a little bit, do you feel like you have a general sense of rendering in V-Ray? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good.
How did you have the texture?
The texture?
Not the texture, the material show up in your regular.
In here? Just set it to rendered view, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I missed that one word.
Nope, no worries. Okay. So let's get out of V-Ray and let's talk about InDesign for a little bit, something that's a little easier to manage. So you guys you've been working in Illustrator quite a bit at this point, so you understand a little bit about artboards and sheets and layers and materials and strokes and fills and all those sorts of things, making text boxes, dealing with vector lines. The difference, so the kind of Adobe suite, the main parts of the Adobe suite are Illustrator, InDesign, and Photoshop. Illustrator and InDesign do a lot of the same things, but not exactly. Photoshop does something very different. They all work together, and you need to use all of them for the different parts of the job that you'll be doing. So Illustrator is best when you're dealing with vector lines, right? So any drawing that you're bringing in from Rhino, any drawing that you're processing through for a presentation board, you want to take it through Illustrator so that you can control the strokes, the fills, and control the qualities of the lines. Illustrator is also great for anytime you're dealing with graphics, right? So if you're dealing with converting an image into a graphic using the image map, or the image trace, command. Anytime you're dealing with making your own graphics, if you're making an icon, if you're making a logo, if you're making a diagram, Illustrator is the place you want to do that. Photoshop, as you know, deals with raster images, so anytime you're dealing with manipulating a photograph itself, you want to be doing that in Photoshop. InDesign does not edit raster images. It can deal with vector lines, but it is not the program that you should use for dealing with vector lines for drawings. But what InDesign is really, really good at is dealing with projects that have multiple pages. So, for example, books, right? InDesign is made for dealing with books, pamphlets, things that are serial productions of each other. It can also lay out your boards for presentation, although, like I said before, the vector information should come through, ideally should come through Illustrator first. But we're going to talk a little bit about why you would want to make your portfolio in InDesign rather than Illustrator. Have you guys used InDesign before? Yes? No? Some yes, some no? Okay, so I'm going to go through the basics, and you'll find that a lot of it is very similar to both InDesign or Illustrator and Photoshop, so hopefully it's not too foreign to you, but we'll talk about the things that are specific to InDesign. So in InDesign, the first thing that you want to do if you haven't already set it up is under Preferences, go under Units and Increments, and change your ruler units to inches. It defaults to pixels or picas, I forget which. We don't really deal with those, so just change it to inches before you have any files open, and it will save your general, it'll save it for your general settings, and you won't have to go in and change it in the future. The next thing you want to do is open a new document, right? So File, New, and Document. It brings up a panel that's asking you for some information. So it's asking you for the number of pages you want in your document. So let's start out with, 10 pages. It asks you if you want them to be facing pages or not. So facing pages mean like when you open a book and you have 2 pages facing each other, it wants to know if you want the layout to show 2 pages at a time, as if it were bound like a book. So you can, let's check that for now. It lets you set the page size, so you should have some defaults, or you can set a custom size. So for now, I'm just going to stick with letter. It lets you change portrait versus landscape, so vertical versus horizontal. I'm going to keep mine as vertical for now. Columns, that's more so if you're laying out something that has columns of text on the page. We don't really need to worry about that for now, so you can leave it as 1. And margins, I tend to set my margins using guides. You can set them in here if you want. So if you want to make sure you have a 1/4 inch margin around each part of the page, you can type in 0.25, and it defaults to your inches. If you want it to be different on the top and the bottom, you can just unlink those, and now I can set the bottom to be 0.5, and I can set the inside and outside as something different as well. You can, once you've made a bunch of changes, like we did in Rhino, you can save it as a preset. So if I were going to make, over the course of my architectural education career, going to make 10 different books, and I wanted them all to be the same format, I could save it as a preset. That's not really something you do on a regular basis, but just know that that's an option. So I'm just going to hit OK, and it's going to bring up a new document eventually. And what I'm looking at is the first page of a 10-page document that has everything after the first page is set up as spreads. Because in a book, the first page, the left-hand side of the page is the cover, right? It's not really part of the book. So you're starting with a single page, and then you open it up and you have 2 pages. So page number 1 is a single page, and then pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on are spreads of pages. Did everybody get that to open up correctly? If you're not seeing pages over here on the right under window, you can turn it on. And if you're not, you can use your same shortcuts, Command or Control plus and minus to zoom in and out from the pages. If you scroll through the little icons of the pages under the Pages panel, you can double click on a page and it'll take you to that page. So if I wanted to go to page 4, 5, I could do that by double clicking on where 4, 5 is on the panel. Everybody with me so far? Jeremy, you with me?
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking.
Believe it or not.
Cool. Okay. You have in here, like you do in Illustrator and Photoshop, you have rulers. The rulers are set in inches because that's what we set our units to. Like in Illustrator and Photoshop, you can pull guides out from the rulers. If you have if you pull them into the page, it will stop the guide at the top and the bottom of the page. If you pull them out of the page, it will extend them across. That's helpful when you're dealing with multiple pages. You can only pull guides onto the active spread, so if I'm here and I'm trying to put a guide down here, I have to click in this plane first, and you can see that the rulers update, right? So if I'm here, the rulers are black here. If I'm here, the rulers are black here. So I can grab a guide and pull it down. If I pull it to the outside of the page, it's going to go across both of them. If I pull it to the inside of the page, it's just going to go across one. As with Illustrator, you want to be exact with the locations of things. So you can use your transform dialog box, or you also have this little panel up here at the top that lets you set exactly. If I want this at 1.5 inches down from the top, I can set that, right? Or if I want it at 1 inch, I can set that. The same thing with the vertical guides. Okay. You can delete guides just by clicking on them and clicking delete. And under view, if you want to lock the guides, you can click it here. It's command, sorry, I'm trying to think of the PC, command option semicolon, or control option semicolon on a PC to lock them as a shortcut. You have the option for layers. I tend to use layers a lot less in InDesign, although they do come in handy when you're trying to control information stacked on top of each other. But the pages are really critical. You have swatches and colors. You have character, paragraph, stroke, transform. We'll go through each of these fairly quickly. If you don't have these on, again, under window, you can turn on whatever you need. So pages is on. Type and tables is where you find character, which talks about font and font size and the spacing between lines, leading and kerning. And that's also where paragraph is. If you want to combine things into multiple panels, so if I didn't have swatches open and I wanted to go in and open it, it's under color and swatches, and then I can drag it over here and dock it into the panel with the other colors on it. I tend to work with these panels open, so pages, layers, and links, swatches, colors, and effects, character, paragraph, and glyphs, stroke, and then transform, align, and Pathfinder. You can choose whatever setup you want. These are the ones we're going to go through. On the left-hand side are the general tools. These should look similar to some of the other programs that we've been working in. Just trying to get them here. So you've got your selection tool, which selects objects. So if I have a rectangle, if I have a rectangle and I'm looking at it here, I'm going to make the stroke thicker so you can see it. If If I want to select the whole rectangle, I use the black arrow. If I want to select part of the rectangle, like a corner, and move that corner, I use the white arrow. So direct. What's that? The shortcuts? It's V and A. Yeah. When you have your object selected, you can by default rotate it or scale it. As in other programs, if you hold down Shift, it's going to scale it proportionally. If you don't hold down Shift, you can stretch it or skew it. Yeah.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
You imported last night in Illustrator just like a bunch of different lines together as a file. I was trying to adjust them like that. Is there a way you can adjust a bunch of lines like that at once?
Yeah, if you just select them all, they should adjust as a group.
Oh.
The other options that you have are the type tool, right? If you want to make a box of text, you grab the type tool and drag to draw a box around the text. It's a little bit different than in Illustrator. You can also click and start typing. I wouldn't recommend that in InDesign. You want to be defining your objects within a box, right? So here's where I'm typing. There's the space that I wanted in. I can make that bigger or smaller by selecting it as an object and scaling it to one side or down. I can make it really tall. I can click back in the box and choose character, or up at the top I have the same options that will allow me to change the font. It'll allow me to change the spacing between the lines, so I can make it really wide spacing. It'll allow me to change the size. Don't ever adjust the horizontal or vertical scaling of the font. I think we've talked about that before. That just destroys the font. If your font has different, or if your typeface has different fonts, you can choose those options in the drop-down. So if I'm in the Helvetica family, I can go in and choose whether I want it to be light or condensed or bold or italic. Italic and all of those sorts of things are controlled by the font. So a font is a subset of a typeface that is a specific size, weight, and italicized or bolded version of it. If you have more text than fits in your box, you're going to end up with this red plus sign on the bottom, which means that there's more information. So either you can click and carry that over to another text box, or you can make your original box bigger. If I click, so I'm going to just go back to the point where I had more text than fits in the box. If I click on that, you can see that I've got this cursor now that shows that I've got stuff kind of held in my cursor. If I click down here, those things are now going to be linked, and you can see there's a little arrow, a little play arrow here that connects them. And so you can see when I adjust one of them, it adjusts the others. So this is a good thing when you have multiple text boxes on one page. You can link them together. So if I had one that started to be a vertical piece and then I wanted to put a horizontal piece below it, I could link those together so I could make adjustments. Maybe I have an image here that I want to be working around, and I could start to adjust them. Well, you can also wrap things. You can wrap text around objects, and it's called text wrapping. Pretty self-explanatory, but you can also make multiple text boxes. Okay. To adjust the visual quality of the text, you can click on the box, and in your swatches, or click into the box, double-click into it, and select the text, and you can change the color of it. So the fill of it's pink now. You should be able to select the box. Maybe you have to select both of them and click on the T. I'm not sure why it's not letting me. I'm going to unlink these. Yeah, I guess it doesn't do it for linked text boxes, but if you select the box in your swatches, you can then select the T and it will be affecting the font. If you're back on the box, it will be affecting the outline or the stroke and fill of the box itself. So if I am in the box or the container and select the stroke to be pink, if I turn off under View, Extras, Hide Frame Edges, it'll get rid of that blue outline around things. So now you can see that my box has a pink line around it, which I don't really want. So I'm going to go back in and turn that to none. You can set different things like whether your words hyphenate. So let me go in and type some actual words here, or I can actually fill it with fill with placeholder text, type, fill with placeholder text. I can set whether I want it to hyphenate or not, so you can see that the word S-U-P-E-R-A-C is hyphenated. If I uncheck that, it should unhyphenate it. I have to select the box first, so I can choose to hyphenate or unhyphenate. I'm a big fan of not hyphenating things. Personal preference, choose what you will. Under paragraph, you can also set your alignment, so left justified, center justified, right justified. You can left aligned, center aligned, right aligned, left justified, center justified, right justified, full justified. You can see the difference that happens up here. What else? There's a lot in here. Glyphs are special characters, so if you need to put in something with like an umlaut or a percentage sign, you can go in and grab them in here if you don't know the shortcut for them. So if I'm typing Jorg's name and I need an O with an umlaut over it, I can go in here, find the O, and double click on it, and we'll insert that into my text. So that's kind of text. Let's see, what do we want to do next? Putting in images is pretty easy. The shortcut for it is, the command for it is placing, or the shortcut for it is Command D or Control D. So if I want to put an image in, I want to place it. I'm going to grab my wood texture from earlier, hit OK, and it lets me choose where I want to put it on the page. It's going to bring it in at the full size. You can, again, as you were before, adjust it using the transform dialog box. So if I want it to be 4 inches, I can type that in there. I would want those to be locked. The width and the height, where's my lock? I guess if I want to scale it, if I want to have it be smaller, I want it to be, I'll scale it down. What's going on with that? Those should be locked. Anyway, I can scale it down using the percentage. Or better yet, you would know what size you want it and have scaled it down in Photoshop so you're not dealing with a file that's much bigger than it needs to be. Placement of it, again, you can control that here in the transform box, or you can drag it around on the page and use your guides. InDesign, unlike Illustrator, automatically crops things if you change the bounding box. So if I were to just grab the corner of this and scale it in or out, it's going to crop the image for me. So you can see that the image is not changing, but what I see of it is changing. You want to be careful about that, because I all the time do it accidentally when I don't mean to. You can also double click into something and the box will change from blue to kind of reddish orange and move something around within the kind of view box, right? So now I have my blue boxes out here, but the content within it is not. So I could scale this, I could scale it up or down, I could move things around, I could change what part of it I want to see within the bounding box, which is a nice thing. You can still do clipping masks in here, clipping paths. I never do clipping paths in here. Let's see. We'll get back to that. So that's placing images. Objects like rectangles you can draw very easily in here. You guys know how to control fill and stroke now. If you want it to be a certain size, you can type it in. If I want it to be 2x4, I can type it in here. Or if you click on your rectangle tool, rather than clicking and dragging to draw a rectangle, if you click in the artboard, click in the page, it'll bring up a rectangle dialog box, and you can set in here exactly what size rectangle you want to make before you drop it into the page. Straight lines are here. Click on this, click and drag. The pen tool works the same way as it does in Illustrator. You click to set points. Click and drag to make a rounded portion of it, so you can make something that has both rounded and straight components to it. The white arrow, the direct selection tool, also allows for you to go back in and make adjustments. Those are pretty much the basics. You don't really need panning. You can hold down your shift or your space bar and it'll pan around. Z activates the zoom command and lets you zoom to a window, or your command 0 zooms to the page, command plus and minus, control plus and minus zooms in and out step by step. Command or control semicolon or colon, I always get them backwards, turns on and off your guides. So if I have a bunch of guides on the page and I want to look at it without those on, command or control and semicolon turns those on and off. Does that generally make sense to you guys? Yes? The align tools are really good ones to know. So I'm going to make a couple of boxes and I'm just going to select them and switch between fill and stroke so that I can see them clearly that they're black boxes. If I want all of these to be aligned along their top edge, I can use the align tools. So there's align and distribute. Again, if you don't see those, they're under window. Where are they? They're under object and layout. Object and layout align. Yep. Yep. So that'll bring up the align dialog box. Thank you for the many people that helped me locate it. And under align, you can choose to align them to the left, which I don't want to do. I can choose to align them to the center, which I don't want to do. Or I can choose to align them to the top. I can also choose to distribute them based on their spacing. So if I want these to be aligned along the top and have the same spacing, I can choose to distribute them using the spacing down here. And distribute spacing down here. If I just click on distribute spacing, it will space them so that the space between everything is equal, or I can choose to have it space them so that there's a specific space in between. So if I want an 1/8 inch in between, I can use spacing and then click, and it'll put an 1/8 inch in between each of the objects. This one comes in pretty handy, especially when you're laying out multiple things on a page in combination with your guides. So those are some of the basic tools. Questions or things that you would want to know basically how to do? Otherwise, we'll get into master pages and page numbering, automatic page numbering, those sort, and character styles in a minute. General commands, are there things that I'm forgetting?
Why did you, when I was opening it up, it gave the option for a document or a book,
Mm-hmm.
and you went to document and then did 10 pages. How is that different than a book?
So a book is if you were making an actual book and you were going to have, if you were going to divide it up into chapters or something like that, you could link them all together. Yeah, it's basically a collection of a bunch of different documents so that you can work on them individually, not at the same time. It also allows you then to package that for sending it to a publisher or something like that.
Also important for like page numbering. So if you have pre-book material that's numbered I, you can set that up and you start page 1, which is actually like page 27.
Right. Nice.
Okay. So you will most likely be using documents rather than books for portfolios, but
Right.
it's good to know that, yeah, so
Yeah, 'cause my instinct was book, but then
start with document and then build up to book.
I noticed that, yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll come back if people have questions. So let's talk a little bit about, speaking of those sorts of things, let's talk about pages. So you can see up here that each of the pages has a little letter in the top right corner, an A. And then up here in the top, there's an A master, right? If I double click into that, I come into this master spread for all pages that are labeled A. So for example, let me go ahead and I'm just going to put a black square on the right-hand side of page A and then click back into my page 1. You can see that now there is a black square on the right side of every page that is page 1, right? So it takes anything that's on the master page and applies it to every page that's designated that same thing. So I probably don't want to put a black square on every page, but I might want to set up my guides so that I have a particular series of guides on a page. And then if I click into page 1, you can see that every right-hand page now has that same set of guides on it. On the left-hand page, maybe I want to have a title. I'm just going to make it big so you can see it. And then I'm going to click into my pages, and now on the left-hand side I have a title on every page. I don't want it to say title on every page for this example, so I can click on Command Shift and then just click on the title, and it'll let me go in and modify it. So this is going to be Project 1. I'm going to click Command Shift and click on title on this page, and I'm going to call this Project 2. And it will have let me put all of those text boxes in the right place, in the same place on every page, but then allow me to go in and adjust them so that I can customize them to what needs to be on that page. So if you were having, if you were setting up your portfolio and you wanted at the bottom, you wanted it to tell you what project you're in on every page, you could do that. There's other ways you could do it as well, but that's one way to do it. So I'm going to go in and delete those and go back in here. Anytime you override one of those defaults, it's not going to update when you change something on the master page, so you'll have to go in and adjust those separately. Things that become really helpful for this in addition to guides are page numbers. So if I want to have the pages numbered sequentially, I can go into the master page and make a text box down here on the bottom right-hand side of the page or wherever you want it, and type in page. And then instead of typing 1, which would put page number 1 on each of my pages, which I don't want, right? They're not all page 1. I can go into the master, and instead of putting in the number, I can put in a special character that stands for the number. So under type, insert special character, marker, current page number. So type, insert special character, marker, and current page number. It's going to go in and it's going to put in the letter A, but the letter A stands for the current page number. So can you guys see that here? And I can control the font. So I want it to be Helvetica or News Gothic 48, and I want it to be aligned right. So I'm either going to do Command Shift or Control Shift R, which is the shortcut for align right, or go under paragraph and adjust the alignments. And if I double click back on my page, sorry, I clicked on the master instead of the page. If I click on one of my pages, you can see that they're automatically numbering themselves as to which page it is. And I don't have to go in and put number 1, number 2, number 3. You can do the same thing on the left side. So I can just copy this, paste it in place, move it over, and it'll automatically recognize what page it's on. So now I've got the pages on the left numbered as well. It's nice to do it this way because it'll automatically update. So if for some reason I moved page 4 and 5 in front of page 2 and 3, it'll automatically update it so those pages are shifted around. So let me show you. So if I have something on page 2, and then I move that after page 4 and 5, you can see that it moves after and it automatically updates the page numbering. There's other special characters you could go in, like if you wanted to say page blank of however many pages there are, I could say page A of, and put in, I could insert another special character, so type insert special character, marker, no, what is it? It's type, insert special character, where's my last page number? Yeah. Okay, there should be something in here that says like last page. Oh, sorry, it's under text variables, under insert variable last page number. So it's gonna put a placeholder of 1 in there, so it'll tell me page 3 of 10. If I delete a page, it'll now tell me 3 of 9. Right. So I'm not sure. You don't use probably don't use that very often, but there's other types of markers is the idea. You can also put images, or you could put something on in the background of every page. You can create multiple masters. So under pages in the top portion, you can click on here and say new master, and it'll call it B, or you can call it anything you want. You can say whether you want it to have 2 pages or 1, so if it's going to be something that's set up for a spread or for a single page, and hit OK. And then in here I can put something different, so say for example I want the background to be black on the right hand side of the B masters, and I want page 6 and 7 to have that right hand side page black. I select the pages, right? So up here is the masters, down here is the pages, right click, apply master to pages, and tell it I want it to be B, and hit OK. And now pages 6 and 7 should be the B master rather than the A master. Right. So the advantage of this is it allows you to make adjustments and not have to go into each individual page and make the adjustment. It also allows for alignments. I'm not sure if you've ever done like a PDF where you're showing multiple things after each other that are aligned. So like, for example, first floor plan, second floor plan, third floor plan, and they kind of slightly shift around. It's really annoying. So this allows for you to go in and set up a default location for those sorts of things, and you can go in and align them. Does everybody understand masters? You can also add and delete pages in here. So if I wanted to get rid of pages 8 and 9, I could select them over here and delete them. Or I could go in and insert pages. Say I want 10 more pages. I can click OK. And now my document is 10 pages longer than it was before. Questions so far? No? A couple other things that are really helpful in terms of streamlining your workflow in InDesign are character styles. We're not really going to get into paragraph styles, although there are those as well, and making sure you understand how links work. So let's go in under type and open up character styles. And I'm just going to have this here for now. A character style is a way of saying that I'm going to have all the type that I have designated as something always be the same or always be linked to each other, so that I can make adjustments and it'll update everything. So for example, if you were working on a portfolio, maybe the project name would always be the same type of thing, and then the description of the project would be something different. So I could set up a name character style and a description character style, and I could set each time I have a name and a description to be those sorts of things. And the nice thing about that is if I ever wanted to go in and adjust the size slightly or the color slightly, I could just do it in one place, and it would update every instance of that text throughout the document. What's that? It is very nice for a portfolio. So let's go ahead and set up a new character style. So the way that you do a new one is by creating a new style, and then you double click into it. I'm going to call this, project name. And you can go through a series of different options here. Right now, nothing has any information in it, so it's basically telling me that it's not giving it any particular style until I tell it something, right? So let's say I want my project name to be in Helvetica Neue in bold, and I want it to be 24 points. I'm not going to set any of these other things, and so it'll use whatever the default is. I could set whether I want it to be underlined or bolded or those sorts of things. Again, don't adjust the horizontal and vertical scale. I can change it to have a color, right? So I can say that every time I have a headline or a title, I want it to be cyan. You can, go through all of these different things. But basically, when you're done, hit OK. And if you have a block of type now, so let's say this is my stretched volumes project. I just made a text box and typed in the information. Project name was selected, so it automatically made that type. Cyan 24-point Helvetica Neue. If it hadn't, if I had it have no character styles, and I clicked on it, I can just under character styles click on project name and it'll apply that style to the text. And if I go in now under project name and say, well, no, cyan is a hideous color for titles in my portfolio, I'm going to click, I want them to be red or pink. I can go in, and every instance that I have of title will automatically update. Right? I can set it to be all caps, and that'll automatically update. I can set it to, I don't know, do anything I want. I can set the leading to be longer or more space in between. I'm going to go ahead and set up a new character style and call this description. Yep.
Is there a way to increase the spaces between each character?
Yes. Let me just do this first. So I'm going to fill another box with placeholder text just so I've got some stuff in there, and I'm going to switch it to description. Right now, description has the same qualities as my previous style, but I can go in and change it to not bold, so I'm going to change it to regular and 12 point and not all caps. And let's say I want the leading to be 18 point rather than auto. Where are these based off of each other? So this should be project name, and this should be description. I want this to not be pink. Or black, right? So you can see how that might become quite handy when you're trying to make changes to things, right? So a lot of times portfolios are an iterative process. You might find that maybe all of a sudden this page numbering looks a little big on the page. So I could go in and set that as a character style and then allow for it to adjust everywhere. It's a total pain to have to go in and do it on each page because you'll invariably forget one. Okay, does that make sense? And anything, you can go in and override anything from a character style. It doesn't mean that it's linked to that, but it just means that when you go in and click on it again, it's going to reset it back to what the original was. So be careful about doing that. You can create new styles based on previous styles. So if I wanted to have this character style based on project name, I could have it pick up all of the information from that previous style. So based on description, it's going to tell me that it's black, that it's Helvetica Neue, 12-point, 18-point leading, but then I could go in and change these. So maybe I have like description 2 that will allow for me to go in and have it be similar but have some slight variations to it. So to the question of spacing. So there's a couple different types of spacing, right? There's leading and kerning, which are the basic ones that you'll probably be dealing with. So under paragraph, I'm sorry. So I'm going to get rid of this for now. Under paragraph, under character, My leading and kerning are controlled in here, so if I want to change the spacing between the lines, I can do that here. This is the little icon for leading. This is tracking, which adjusts in thousandths of an M space, the tracking across them. Kerning is something that happens, is fine-tuning between letters. So if I were doing a logo or something and I wanted to be really careful about, or if I wanted to be really controlling about the spacing between letters and I felt like between R and E there was too much space, I could go in and adjust the kerning and it would slightly shift things over or give it more space. You can't kern a whole text box. You can do it optically or metrically, but if you want to change the spacing between specific letters, you need to go in and put the cursor in between them. Is that what you meant, Angela?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. And there is, oh, I don't think I've put it on there yet, but there will be a tutorial, an InDesign tutorial. It's pretty extensive that goes through all of the interface, as there was for Illustrator and Photoshop. Very extensively goes through each of the commands and the interface, talks to you about setting up documents, the selection tools, rulers, pages and master pages, the different type tools. In here it shows you, oops, sorry, I don't want to rotate that, I want to zoom in. It shows you under character, leading, tracking, vertical scale, horizontal scale, all those sorts of things. Okay. So what I'd like for you guys to do between now and the next time we meet, which is 2 weeks from tomorrow, is to lay out your first 3 projects that you will have done by then. So your 3 volumes projects, right? Encased, enclosed, and stretched, as portfolio, as if it were in a portfolio, right? So you'll set them up as individual projects, you'll give them titles, you'll give them a description, you'll put in the images, you'll think about how you want to set up the images based on the different layouts. We've talked about it before. There's the issue website. That's a good place to look for references. You can go in here and search for architecture portfolio and search, and it'll bring up thousands and thousands of architecture portfolios. You can go in and, look at how other people are presenting their work. So this is somebody whose name I could never pronounce, and you can see, see how they present their work. It's all black and white, very clean layouts, some interesting renderings and diagrams. You have to start being pretty discerning. There will be good and bad portfolios on here, and I trust you to know which ones are good and which ones are bad. Don't use a bad one as a reference. This one, don't use fonts like this. They're not graded? No.
No, labeled good and bad.
What's that?
Yes, they're labeled good and bad.
Labeled good and bad? We could go in and create some labels for them. I'm not sure why she chose to use handwriting on the cover. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. So I would not use this one as a reference. You can also go on, I think we've talked about things like different competition sites. So I always use this one as an example, but the Suka City competition. What's that? Suka chicken. So this was a competition in New York in 2010, which was a long time ago now, but it's nice because it has all of the entry boards in it, and you can see, again, good and bad examples. I think we've talked about this one before, haven't we? Yeah. So you can go in and see in board format how people are presenting their work. So thinking about kind of the graphic identity of your portfolio is going to be really important. You want to have, consistency. You want to allow for variation. Not every project is going to fit into exactly the same mold. So you want to set up a system, but you want to be able to accommodate for horizontal or vertical photographs. You want to be able to have something that needs to be 4 pages, and you want to have something that wants to be 2 pages. Those sorts of things. So thinking a little bit about the system is a good thing at this point. I'm gonna get rid of these giant page numbers. They're driving me crazy. Right. So please upload. I'll put a place on the Canvas site before that Wednesday's class. Upload a PDF of this. To export a PDF from Photoshop or from InDesign, it's File and Export. You don't want to print it as a PDF. You want to export it as a PDF. So, sample portfolio. And you can leave all of these basically as the defaults. It will allow you to export just a range of pages. So if I want to just export pages 2 through 6, I can set that here. But anyway, once you're done, click OK. It'll export it. If you have a setting on so that it automatically pops it up, it'll show you. I don't have anything on the rest of these pages, but you can see that it makes an automatically makes a PDF out of your document. So post a PDF of your first round portfolio and print out a hard copy of one sample project. So that might be, depending on how you set up your portfolio, that might be 1 page. If you can fit everything on 1 page, probably not. It might be 2 pages. You might have kind of a title page and then an image page. It might be many pages. It's up to you. But print out hard copy in color if your projects are in color. And we will take a look at those on the Wednesday that we were back together. And I'll post a write-up of that assignment on the Canvas site. But basically, make a portfolio of your first 3 projects. Start developing your graphic identity for the portfolio. Post a PDF of the whole thing on Canvas and print out 1 project's worth of pages so that we can take a look at them. Questions, comments, concerns? Yes. What? I'm going to say no. Dan might have another. I don't know if you're going to be doing a specific portfolio for studio. I would hope that he will allow for you to work on your portfolio in this class. I don't have a particular size. For this class, yes. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly where it falls in your studio. But your portfolio of your studio work will be your one of your final assignments for this class. Okay? Questions? No? Other questions? Okay. So we've got a little bit of time left. We actually have a fair amount of time left. Is there something else that you guys want to go through? That kind of covers what I wanted to cover for today. We'll do more rendering in the future. It will be a little bit more, I'll make sure there are less hiccups in the presentation of it. But do you guys have any questions about Rhino or Grasshopper? We'll get to yours, Jenny, about the offsetting and the piping. I need to know what you're working on so that I can help you with it. Everything else under control? Studio's going okay?
If we're working in studio, can you help us?
Yeah, I'll be around.
Stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, I can watch the video too. Sometimes
For which?
the perforations, a lot is happening.
The perforations? Yeah, we can go through. Do you want to go through that in here?
Yes. Can we all get 5 seconds?
Yeah, let's take another break. Does everybody want to go through the perforations? If you've already done it, you're welcome to go work elsewhere. But might be helpful. We'll take a 5-minute break.